So as you saw, we got the thing running, and I had a used coil in the basement I put on it, and I got to thinking, I wonder if it was just the ground. So I cleaned up the back side of this and where the bolts are, put the original coil back on. That's the original coil there, and it has spark with it, so I think it was just a bad ground on the coil. So I'm just going to leave the original stuff on there. So today I'm going to start taking the skid pan off, start getting this stuff off here so I can blast it and repaint it. And I'm going to drain the oil out of the crankcase and start breaking all the screws loose. There's screws down in here. Why the engine is still in the frame, so I can, I might have to, hopefully none of them break. Might have to heat a screw too with a propane torch, but hopefully it comes apart. It's been leaking oil over here for 20 years plus years, so it's probably not seized back here. Concerned about these screws and a couple under here. So I'm going to start pulling things apart. So before I start doing anything, I'm going to go around and put a drop of oil on everything that's got to be undone. Oil works pretty good. I mean, penetrant if they're really rusty, but oil really works good for stuff like that. I prefer just drop or two oil over penetrant on stuff like that. So anyway, I'm going to start tearing things apart. Went around and put a drop of oil on all the bolts, everything for the motor, and to get the motor off. And while I was waiting for the oil to soak in, I cleaned the pinstriping off the fuel tank and the fenders. So it looks much better. I actually put a coat of wax on the fuel tank. Look at that. I was going to have the chrome all replated on this, on the motorcycle. The place I deal with, you can just fill a rack. It's one price for the whole rack, so I could have probably put every piece for this. I mean, a car bumper won't fit in a rack, but all these little pieces totally fit in a rack. You got to take them all apart and prep them. And chrome plating is like painting. The plate job will only turn out as nice as the finish it goes on, just like paint. But it looks good with the pinstriping all removed. And I think I'm just going to leave the chrome alone. It looks alright. I mean, I was going to replate it all, but I don't see any point in it. It looks, there's a few little, like on the back side of these mirrors from over the years, like stones and stuff, bugs and stuff hitting it. But you got to really look to see it. And the turn signals are, some of the chrome's a little worn. Like right here you can see the copper underneath a little bit, if but I think for the most part it'll be fine. I'll take all the stuff off and really polish it up good, and polish the fenders while they're off. And I'm looking at the frame and it's in pretty good shape. I mean, there's a few little spots here underneath the fuel tank which are nothing, so I may just paint the parts of the frame that need it with a good automotive enamel. I'm going to take the chain guard off the other side of the engine here and get the paint mixed up. Take this off and get the paint mixed to match that, and then after I get all the mechanical work done on the engine and it's reassembled, I'll mask the cylinder and mask this and just paint the whole crankcase so it all matches. I mean, the paint in here is pretty nice still, but I want it to be all uniform and match. And there's numbers there, and there's numbers, I think, up over here somewhere. Yeah, right here. And check out this decal on the tank. That's the original decal. It's in different languages, but it's all in good shape. The underside of the tank needs a little tidying up there, so that's 100% original, so I'll wash that up with a, and that, you know, they didn't put a lot of paint on the underside. They didn't build these things to last as long as this thing's been around. So I'll clean that all up and wax it up under there really good, and that'll stop any further rust. And these were where those rubber grommets were squeaking. That drove me just insane. I mean, I can drive a car and it can be breaking in half and rattling as long as it doesn't squeak. Just squeaks just make me cringe. So I always have to fix squeaks. But rattles don't bother me so much. Isn't that crazy? Alright, so I'm going to start undoing bolts here so I can drop that pan and get the crankcase drained and start breaking screws free. This is nuts. I thought these bolts were going to be a major nightmare, and they come right undone. I thought I was going to be fighting. Well, that one came right undone down there. But we'll maybe let these ones soak a little longer. That one's starting to break free. I'm going to put a little more oil on those ones and let them soak a little longer, but I was astounded that that actually loosened up, and I can get the skid pan off with just this bolt out. These ones here you need to take to get the engine off. So I'm gonna pull a skid pan and I can get the oil draining while there's two bolts, one there and one there, and that one up in the front, and the skid pan's off, and I can start. I mean, you don't need to take the skid pan off, get the oil out. There's a hole. Let's see, that's the drain plug right there, and there's a filter in there too, so you clean the filter when you drain the oil out. You can take the filter out and clean it and put it back in. It's a cleanable one. It's like a really fine screen. And then there's a centrifugal filter in the crankcase, and I've never cleaned that, so that'll be clean too. Well, once I set the camera down, I was able to get the wrench on those good. They loosened right up. So this thing's going to come apart without giving me fits, hopefully. Hopefully I'm not. Oh wow, man, that even loosened up. Let's see, I can't get a good hold on it there. Yeah, that's even loose. So yeah, so it looks like it's going to come apart fairly easy. Awesome. Get a load of this too. The bolts aren't seized in the frame or the engine either. Amazing. Alright, get tearing to it. That came off like butter, no problem. It needs a little scraping out in here, and there's a little dent or two in it from bottoming it out over the years that will bump out, and clean, like I say, clean it up and bead blast it and bead blast these and give them a coat of paint and scrape all this clean and get these screws broke loose and the screws on the other cover, and I'll unbolt the engine bolts after the engine's off because there's bolts under there too. But I want to get the screws broke loose. The screws are going to be a little more difficult holding the engine and turning them than bolts. So yeah, it's coming apart quick. Alright, I'm going to get the oil drained out. Now I've kept the oil changed. I've always been really good about keeping the oil changed on this, so the oil should not be bad when I drain it out. It should be pretty clean. I mean, I changed oil in it all the time. Like when I rode it regularly all the time, every 500 miles it got an oil change. So yeah, that's probably why it still runs good. My dad picked up this little tripod for me for the GoPro, so I think I'm going to try it out when I drain the oil here. Let's see how it works. Already loosened the Well, I thought I loosened the plug. I think I'll take the oil cap loose too. Well, the oil isn't too bad. There's the little screen filter doohickey. So we'll let that drain out for a while. I can't use my parts washer for a table anymore as I'm going to be needing it here. So let me just take my Bend-A-Light and stuff it in here, and you can see how clean the inside of this engine is. That little round thing right there is a centrifugal oil filter. The gear that drives it. But yeah, that engine's pretty darn clean on the inside. Like I say, I change oil in it. Lately, you know, since I haven't been, you can see the crankshaft bearing right there. But I haven't ridden it much in the past 25 years or so, maybe 100 or 200 miles a year, so I just change oil in it annually, generally at the end of every season. It's cleaned up well. There's one dent right there that I'll knock out, but the dirt and mud and oil that was in there kept it good. But this side, the chloride from the dirt roads kind of caused that. So I'll have to knock all that off and grind it out and repaint that. But the rest of it isn't too bad. The bolts that held it on were so caked in grease I couldn't even see them, and that helped protect them. So these were the bolts there and there. But yeah, I cleaned the underneath off a little bit too. I'll throw it in the parts washer before I take it apart and get all, so I don't get any dirt in the engine. So I'm going to break these screws loose now. Might take the kickstarter and the foot peg off so I can get to all the screws. That freed everything up, so now I have easy access to break all the screws loose. Starting to get a pile of parts. I'm going to have to get a box and some bags and start labeling stuff. I'm going to use a Phillips bit that fits these screws really nicely in a 1/4 inch socket and ratchet here. So let me just set the camera and we'll start breaking these things loose and hopefully don't break any off. Oh wow, that one's loose. Wow. Didn't expect this, although I might be speaking too soon. I think that one has some dirt. I'm going to have to clean the dirt out of the screw head. Okay, and those two screws have dirt in the screw head. Did I loosen it? Yeah, that one's loose. So let me clean the dirt out of those screw heads and I'll hopefully get them off too. So far everything's loosened up. Floored. Thought I was going to be breaking screws. This one's being a, oh, there it goes. Spoke too soon. Okay, they're all loose. Amazing, didn't break one. I'm just gonna run them in with the screwdriver so it doesn't come loose from the engine until I get the engine off. Yeah, well, that's good. I can pop that cover. The clutch is under that cover. And I think I'll do get the screws broke on the other cover. Like I say, the bolts, I can do that with the engine out. All right, that's a big relief. These are good things to have around, you know, all these different, this came from estate sales and stuff, you know, you buy, they're in these, there's Phillips, slotted and Torx, and they're all estate sale stuff, like 50 cents or $1, you know, I mean, I get a lot of stuff like this at estate sales. It's just amazing what you can get. Now watch this side be a nightmare. I want to take this chain guard to get paint mixed, but this screw is kind of rounded and it doesn't want, I might have to work that one. Oh, that one's loose, so that one wasn't even tight. Some of these screws on this side, it looks like somebody's put something on them in the past. Yeah, I'm going to have to fuss with those for a while. This one isn't the right size for there. I'll take a ball peen hammer and tap them in and then try it. So I tap in the bit to the screw and it comes loose. And I'm going to take this cover right off because I want to use it to match the paint. I think I'll take the shift lever off too. So a little thing for the neutral, where the neutral switch is right there, and that's the wire and the little plastic things, and it's broken, so I have to see about getting another one of that to readjust the timing chain tension. So let me see if I can break the rest of the screws loose here. I'm going to turn the camera off because I'm going to be using the hammer and I don't want to hit it. I think I'm going to get this foot peg and the shifter off too. So all the screws on this side now, including these really stuck ones, are all loose. Nothing broke. I'm going to just run them back in a little bit. The little plastic doohickey that goes over this thing for the neutral light is broken, so I'll get a new one of those, look up the part number on my microfiche and search eBay for it, and there's the flywheel. I don't see there is, oh yeah, right there's the timing marks. So you can time this with a timing light if necessary, but I've never done it. Never changed the points. If you keep your points gapped right, the timing shouldn't change. The point gap, like on cars, when the points open, you get your spark. So the point gap, changing the dwell will change the timing, but changing the timing will not change the dwell. On magneto engines, it's the opposite. I believe when the points close, it fires. But this all looks pretty good. The oil seal that got ripped out by that stone when Dave and I were riding all those years ago is right. It was ripped out right in here. The stone got dragged right up in there. And so I'm going to pull a chain and start unbolting the engine. Take the air fittings off for the carburetor and everything. Start getting ready to remove the engine from the frame. One other note, this is what you adjust the clutch with. So this is that little piece I showed you that had the little funny shapes in it, so that when you pull this up, it moves that part back and forth in there to engage and disengage the clutch. I have adjusted the clutch and it slips. There's no getting around it. I mean, when you hit third, if you give it more than half throttle, it starts slipping, and you hit fourth more than third throttle, it starts slipping, and fifth, you just got to barely give it the gas or it starts slipping. So, and it's been, like I say, slipping for a while. 15, 20 years, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse to the point to where I just need to put a clutch in it. I've been neglecting this, so just now is the time, right? So to remove the chain, I take this cotter pin out, loosen this nut, back these out, and the wheel will go forward, and then I'll be able to get the chain off. The chain looks a little loose, but when you sit on it, it tightens up. You always adjust the chain on these with somebody about the same weight sitting on it. I usually sit on it and have my brother or someone else turn the adjusters. And then there's little notches here so you get your wheel, so mark there and little marks on the frame, so you get your wheel straight so you don't dog track while you're riding through the woods. And turn signal flasher, that's the little fuse for the motorcycle. Alright, let me get back to work here. So I guess I forgot it had a master link, but we got the chain off. I'm just going to throw the chain in the bottom of the parts washer there and let it soak until I need it. So I got everything loose, the clutch cable's off, this little cable end here. You can kind of see it's funny shaped end. Fits in that. I had to open it up a little bit, but it just fits in that. And got the breather off, carburetor's loose, engine's loose. I got this bolt to slide out and the engine's off. I do have a city council meeting I got to go to this evening, so I got to go in and get cleaned up. And well, tomorrow I'll have to clean my bench off. Before I pull the motor off, I want to clean the bench so I have a place to set the motor and work on it. So I'm going to call it a day. And thank you everyone for watching my videos, and if you enjoy them, please subscribe.